David stood in the living room of his penthouse, watching the technician install the last camera. It was a small black dome that blended into the ceiling, barely noticeable unless you knew where to look. The technician climbed down from his ladder and wiped his hands on his work pants. "That's the last one, Mr. Chun. You've got full coverage now. Living room, kitchen, hallways, and the playroom. Everything feeds to an app on your phone. You can watch live or review footage from the past 30 days. David nodded, pulling out his phone to check the app. 6 camera feeds appeared on his screen, showing different angles of his home. He could see his own reflection in one of them. A 42-year-old man in an expensive suit, standing alone in an apartment that was too big and too quiet. "The bedrooms and bathrooms aren't covered, right?" David asked. "I want to be clear about that." "Correct. Just the common areas, like you requested. And you'll need to inform anyone who works here or visits regularly. It's the law in New York." "I know." "I will." The technician packed up his tools and left. David stood there for a moment, looking at the cameras. Was this excessive? Maybe, but he was a single father with 2 8-year-old children and a job that demanded 70 hours a week. He needed to know they were safe. He needed to know what was happening in his home when he wasn't there. The divorce had been final for 2 years now, but the guilt was still fresh. Rebecca had wanted to slow down, spend more time as a family. David had wanted to build the business, make one more deal, secure one more client. By the time he realized what he was losing, she was already gone. She had moved to California, starting a new life. She saw the twins during holidays and summer vacation, but the day-to-day parenting fell to him, except he wasn't there for the day-to-day either. That's why he needed help. The doorbell rang at exactly 9 o'clock the next morning. David opened it to find a small, neat woman with graying hair pulled back in a bun. She wore simple clothes and carried a worn suitcase. Her face was kind but tired, with the sort of lines that come from years of hard work. "Mr. Chun? I'm Rosa Martinez. The agency sent me." "Yes, come in, please." Rosa stepped into the apartment and looked around with the practiced eye of someone who had cleaned 1,000 homes. David watched her take in the marble floors, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, the modern furniture that cost more than most people made in a year. "It's a beautiful home," she said quietly. "Thank you. Let me show you around." David gave her the tour, explaining where things were kept, what the children liked to eat, their schedules and routines. Rosa listened carefully, occasionally asking questions in accented but clear English. She had been in the United States for 20 years, she explained. She had excellent references. The agency had checked everything. "There's one more thing," David said as they finished the tour. "I've installed security cameras in the common areas. The living room, kitchen, hallways, and playroom. Not in the bedrooms or bathrooms, of course. I want you to know they're there. It's nothing personal. I just need to be able to check on my children when I'm at work." Rosa nodded without hesitation. "I understand. You are a careful father. This is good. You're comfortable with that?" "Of course. I have nothing to hide, Mr. Chun. I am here to help your family." Something about the way she said it made David relax slightly. She seemed genuine, honest. The agency had done background checks, called her references, verified her work history. Everything had come back clean. "The children will be home from school at 3:30, David said. "My driver brings them. Their names are Lily and Nathan. They're twins, 8 years old. Lily is the quiet one. Nathan talks enough for both of them." Rosa smiled. "I have raised children, Mr. Chun. I understand twins. I will take good care of them." That afternoon, David left for work with a strange mixture of relief and anxiety. He had hired help before, but never someone who would live in his home. Never someone who would be alone with his children for hours every day. But what choice did he have? He couldn't keep leaving the twins with neighbors or hiring different babysitters every week. They needed stability. They needed someone consistent. He checked his phone during his lunch meeting. The camera app showed Rosa in the kitchen, preparing what looked like a snack. She worked efficiently, laying out plates and cutting fruit. When the children arrived home, he watched them meet her for the first time. Nathan immediately started talking, gesturing wildly about something that had happened at school. Lily hung back, watching Rosa with cautious eyes. Rosa listened to Nathan with patient attention, then turned to Lily and said something that made the little girl smile. David felt his shoulders relax. Maybe this would work out. The first 2 weeks passed smoothly. David checked the cameras periodically, usually during lunch or between meetings. He saw Rosa helping the children with homework, making them dinner, playing board games with them in the evening. She was patient when Nathan got frustrated with his math problems. She was gentle when Lily was sad about something at school. The children seemed to like her. At dinner, the few evenings when David made it home before bedtime, they talked about Miss Rosa and what she had taught them that day. She was teaching them to cook simple meals. She was teaching them Spanish words. She told them stories about Mexico, where she was from. David found himself relaxing more. Maybe he had been too paranoid. Maybe the cameras were overkill. But they gave him peace of mind, and that was worth something. He started checking the feeds less often. Once a day, usually. Just a quick look to make sure everything was okay. The routine became comfortable, predictable. Until the evening everything changed. It was a Wednesday, 3 weeks after Rosa had started. David was at his office, working late on a deal that was supposed to close by Friday. The office was quiet. Most people had gone home. He decided to check on the children before diving into the next round of contract reviews. He opened the camera app and selected the playroom feed. What he saw made his stomach drop. Rosa and the twins were in the playroom, but they weren't playing. They were sitting on the floor in a circle. Rosa had her phone out, and she appeared to be recording. Nathan's face was red, like he had been crying. Lily looked scared. Rosa was talking to them, her mouth moving rapidly. David turned up the volume on his phone. She was speaking Spanish. Rapid, intense Spanish that he couldn't understand. The children were trying to repeat what she said, stumbling over the words. Nathan said something, and Rosa shook her head, gesturing for him to say it again with more emotion. David's hands started to shake. What was this? What was she doing? He watched as Rosa wiped Nathan's tears away, then seemed to instruct him to cry again while saying whatever phrase she was teaching him. The little boy tried, forcing tears, speaking in broken Spanish. Lily was crying now too, real tears streaming down her face. David's mind raced. He had heard stories. Rich men targeted by household staff. False accusations. Coached testimonies. People who saw a wealthy single father and thought they could extract money through blackmail or lawsuits. Was that what this was? Was Rosa coaching his children to say something? To accuse him of something he didn't do? His heart pounded. He needed to see more. He needed to understand what was happening. David switched to the recorded footage, going back through the past week. He fast-forwarded through hours of video, looking for similar scenes. He found them. 3 times in the past week, the same setup. Rosa and the children, sitting in the playroom, practicing something in Spanish. Rosa recording on her phone. The children looking uncomfortable, sometimes crying, always repeating phrases he couldn't understand. Why hadn't he noticed before? Because he had stopped watching so carefully. Because he had let his guard down. David felt sick. He had let this woman into his home. He had trusted her with his children. And now she was doing something with them, teaching them something, recording them for some purpose he couldn't understand. He thought about his divorce, about Rebecca's lawyers and how they had tried to paint him as an absent father, about how custody battles could turn ugly when money was involved, about how accusations, even false ones, could destroy a person's life. Was Rosa building some kind of case against him? Was someone paying her to do this? David grabbed his desk phone and dialed a number he had hoped he would never need. It rang twice before a professional voice answered. NYPD, how can I direct your call? David took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice steady. I need to report something. I have video evidence of someone in my home doing something suspicious with my children. I think they might be coaching them. I need someone to come look at this. What's your location, sir? David gave his office address. The operator asked more questions. He answered mechanically, his eyes still on his phone screen, watching Rosa and his children in the playroom. Officers will be there within 20 minutes, sir. Please don't delete any video evidence. I won't, David said. Please hurry. He hung up and stared at the screen. Rosa was smiling now, showing the children something on her phone. They looked relieved, like whatever practice session they had been doing was over. David's jaw clenched. He had built his career on reading people, on spotting deception, on protecting his interests. How had he missed this? How had he let someone dangerous get this close to his children? He would find out what Rosa was doing, and if she was trying to hurt his family, he would make sure she never worked in this city again. The two detectives arrived 18 minutes later. David met them in the lobby of his office building, too anxious to wait upstairs. The first was a woman in her mid-40s, with sharp eyes and graying blonde hair pulled into a ponytail. She introduced herself as Detective Karen Williams. Her partner was younger, maybe 35, with dark hair and the build of someone who spent time at the gym. Detective Tom Rodriguez. Mr. Chun? You called about suspicious activity involving your children? Detective Williams asked as they rode the elevator to David's floor. Yes, I have security cameras in my home. I was reviewing footage tonight, and I saw something that scared me. My children's maid, the woman I hired 3 weeks ago, she's doing something with them, recording them on her phone, making them cry and repeat things in Spanish. I don't know what she's planning, but it doesn't look good. Detective Rodriguez exchanged a glance with his partner. You have the footage with you? On my phone, and I can access more from the cloud. I saved everything from the past week. In David's office, he pulled up the videos on his computer, projecting them onto the large screen on his wall. The three of them sat in the dim light, watching Rosa and the children in the playroom. David had watched these clips a dozen times already, and each viewing made him more certain something was wrong. Rosa speaking rapidly in Spanish. Nathan trying to repeat her words, his face scrunched up in concentration. Rosa shaking her head, making him say it again, then instructing him to cry while he spoke. Do you understand what she's saying? David asked Detective Rodriguez. I know some Spanish from high school, but she's speaking too fast and my kids are still learning at school. Rodriguez leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the screen. He was quiet for a long moment, listening intently. Then he rewound the video and listened again. His expression was hard to read. Can you play the one from last Tuesday? Rodriguez asked. David pulled up another clip. Same setup. Rosa, the twins, the phone recording. This time, it was Lily speaking, her voice small and hesitant. Rosa encouraging her, demonstrating how to say the words with more feeling. Rodriguez watched this one twice. Then he sat back in his chair and looked at David. Mr. Chun, I need to ask you something. Has anyone in your family been diagnosed with a serious medical condition recently? David blinked. What? No. Why would you ask that? What about extended family, cousins? Anyone connected to your household? No, everyone's healthy. I don't understand what that has to do with anything. Detective, that woman is coaching my children to say something on camera. Given my financial situation and my divorce, I'm worried she's setting me up for some kind of false accusation or blackmail attempt. Williams looked at her partner. Tom, what are you hearing? Rodriguez rubbed his face, looking troubled. It's not what Mr. Chun thinks. At least, I don't think it is. But I need to hear more of the audio, and I need to talk to the children and Rosa Martinez before I can be sure. Sure about what? David's voice rose. What is she saying to my children? I'd rather not speculate until I'm certain, Rodriguez said carefully. Mr. Chun, I understand you're frightened, but I need you to trust me for now. Can we go to your home? I need to see the full context and speak with everyone involved. David wanted to demand answers, but something in Rodriguez's tone made him hesitate. The detective didn't look angry or alarmed. He looked sad, almost sympathetic. Fine, David said, but I'm coming with you. Those are my children, of course. The drive to David's penthouse took 20 minutes through evening traffic. David sat in the back of the unmarked police car, his mind spinning. What medical condition? What did that have to do with Rosa recording his kids? Nothing about this made sense. He texted his driver to make sure he was still nearby, ready to take the children away if needed. He texted his lawyer too, just a heads up the police were investigating something at his home. His lawyer responded immediately, asking if he needed representation. David said not yet, but to stay available. They arrived at the building just after 8 o'clock. The doorman looked surprised to see David with police officers, but didn't ask questions. In the elevator, David's heart hammered. What would they find? What would Rosa say when confronted? He unlocked his apartment door and they stepped inside. The sound of children's laughter came from the living room. David walked in to find Nathan and Lily on the couch, watching a movie. Rosa sat in the chair nearby, knitting something that looked like a small blanket. She looked up when they entered, and her face went from calm to confused to terrified in the space of 2 seconds. She saw the police officers and stood up so quickly her knitting fell to the floor. Mr. Chun? What is happening? The children turned around, their faces showing the same confusion. Lily climbed off the couch and ran to David, hugging his waist. Daddy, you're home early. I know, sweetheart. These are police officers. They need to talk to Miss Rosa about something. It's okay. But Lily looked worried. Nathan had gone very still on the couch, his eyes wide. Detective Williams crouched down to the children's eye level. Hi there. I'm Detective Williams. We just need to ask Miss Rosa some questions, okay? Nothing to be scared about. Rodriguez was watching Rosa, whose hands were shaking. She was staring at the detectives like they were about to arrest her. Then she started speaking in rapid Spanish, words tumbling over each other, her voice breaking. Rodriguez held up a hand. English, please, ma'am. So everyone can understand. Rosa switched to English, but her accent was thicker now, her words coming out jumbled. Please, I can explain. I was going to tell Mr. Chun. I was going to quit after. I never meant any harm to the children. Please, you must understand. David's fists clenched. This was it. The confession. She was admitting to whatever scheme she had planned. Rosa Martinez, Rodriguez said gently, I need you to calm down and tell me about Maria. Rosa's face crumpled completely. She covered her mouth with both hands and started crying. Not quiet tears, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. She sank back into the chair, her face in her hands. Who's Maria? David demanded. What are you talking about? Rodriguez turned to him. Mr. Chun, I'd like to speak with you privately. Detective Williams will stay here with Rosa and the children. I'm not leaving my kids alone with her. Dad? Nathan's small voice cut through the tension. Miss Rosa's daughter is really sick. That's who Maria is. Everyone turned to look at the boy. He was still on the couch, looking between the adults with worried eyes. You know about Maria? Rodriguez asked. Yeah, Miss Rosa told us about her last week. She has something wrong with her kidneys. That's why we've been practicing. Practicing what? David asked, his voice hollow. Lily pulled away from David's side and walked over to Rosa, who was still crying. The little girl put her hand on Rosa's knee. We were making a video to help Miss Rosa's daughter, Lily said quietly, to ask people to donate money for her operation. The room went completely silent, except for Rosa's crying. David felt like the floor had shifted under his feet. What? Rodriguez gestured toward David's study. Let's talk in private, please. David followed him into the study in a daze. Rodriguez closed the door and turned to face him. Mr. Chun, I speak Spanish. I understood what Rosa was teaching your children in those videos. She was coaching them to make an emotional appeal for a fundraising campaign. Your son Nathan was practicing saying things like, "Please help save Maria," and "She's like a sister to us" in Spanish. The crying wasn't malicious. Rosa was teaching them to express genuine emotion to make the video more compelling for potential donors. David sat down heavily in his desk chair. That can't be right. Why would she use my children for that? Why wouldn't she just ask me for help? According to what I heard in the videos and what your son just confirmed, Rosa's daughter Maria has late-stage kidney disease. She needs a transplant. The family is in Mexico and doesn't have the money for the treatment. Rosa has been sending them everything she can, but it's not enough. So she decided to use my children to make a fundraising video without asking my permission? She probably thought you'd say no. Or she was embarrassed to ask. Mr. Chun, Rosa Martinez has been in this country for 20 years working as a domestic worker. She cleans houses for wealthy people who rarely notice she exists. How comfortable would you be asking your employer for help with a massive medical expense? David's head was spinning, but the way she was recording them, making them cry, coaching them to say things in a language they barely speak. She was trying to make the video authentic, emotional, something that would move people to donate. It was misguided, yes. She should have asked your permission, but I don't believe there was any malicious intent. You don't believe? David's voice rose. You watched those videos. You saw how scared my children looked. They looked uncomfortable because they were learning a new language and trying to perform for a camera. But when we walked in just now, your daughter went straight to Rosa to comfort her. Your son defended her immediately. Kids are pretty good at sensing when adults have bad intentions, Mr. Chun. Your children clearly trust her. David put his head in his hands. All evening, he had been so sure, so certain that Rosa was dangerous, that she was planning something terrible. And now, I need to hear it from her, he said. I need her to explain this to me directly. They went back to the living room. Rosa had stopped crying, but her face was red and blotchy. Williams was sitting with the children on the couch, keeping them calm. Nathan and Lily looked scared now, picking up on the tension in the room. David looked at Rosa. Show me your phone. Show me what you were recording. Rosa's hand shook as she pulled out her phone. She unlocked it and handed it to David, unable to meet his eyes. He opened her photos and found a folder. Dozens of videos. He clicked on the first one dot. It showed Nathan and Lily sitting on the playroom floor, speaking to the camera in halting Spanish. Behind them, Rosa had arranged some of the children's drawings and toys to make the background look warm and friendly. Nathan said something about Maria needing help. Lily held up a picture she had drawn of a girl in a hospital bed. David watched 3 more videos. Each one was the children practicing different versions of the same message, asking for help. explaining Maria's condition in simple terms, talking about how much they cared about Miss Rosa and wanted to help her family. The last video was different. It was edited together, with Spanish subtitles added. The children's best takes, cut together with photos of a young woman in a hospital. Maria, David assumed. She looked like Rosa, same dark eyes and gentle smile, but she was thin and pale, lying in a bed with tubes connected to her arms. The video ended with text scrolling across the screen. A GoFundMe link. A plea for donations. An explanation of Maria's condition and the cost of the transplant surgery. David looked up at Rosa. "When were you planning to post this?" Rosa's voice was barely a whisper. "Tomorrow. And then I was going to quit. I knew you would be angry when you found out. I knew I should have asked permission. But I was desperate, Mr. Chan. My daughter is dying. The doctors say without a transplant in the next few months." She couldn't finish the sentence. David looked at his children, at Nathan and Lily, who had spent their afternoons helping their maid make a video to save someone they had never met, at Rosa, who had been too proud or too scared to ask him directly for help. He thought about the cameras, about his paranoia, about how quickly he had jumped to the worst possible conclusion. How much does the surgery cost? He asked quietly. Rosa looked up, confused. What? The transplant. The treatment. All of it. How much does Maria need? Rosa stared at David like she didn't understand the question. Her eyes were red from crying, her hands still trembling as she clutched the tissue. The surgery? She repeated. I don't understand why you're asking. Just answer the question. How much does Maria need? Rosa looked at Detective Rodriguez as if asking permission to speak. He nodded encouragingly. She took a shaky breath. The transplant surgery itself is $90,000. But there are other costs. The pre-surgery tests and evaluations. The hospital stay after. The medication she will need for the rest of her life to prevent rejection. The doctors in Mexico City said altogether maybe $150,000. Maybe more. Her voice broke. It might as well be $1 million. I have been saving for 6 months, and I have only $8,000. David did the math in his head. At Rosa's salary, even if she saved every penny and never spent anything on herself, it would take years to raise that kind of money. By then, it would be too late. And the video? David asked, gesturing to the phone still in his hand. How much were you hoping to raise? I don't know. Maybe 10,000? 20 if people were generous? Every little bit helps. I was going to send her everything I could and pray that somehow God would provide the rest. Rosa wiped her eyes. I know it was wrong to use your children without asking. I know that. But I thought if people saw these beautiful American children asking for help, they might care more than if it was just me begging. Lily had been listening quietly from the couch. Now she spoke up, her voice small but clear. We wanted to help, Daddy. Miss Rosa showed us pictures of Maria. She looks really sick. Nathan nodded vigorously. And Miss Rosa said that if Maria doesn't get a new kidney soon, she might die. We had to do something. David looked at his children, 8 years old. They barely understood what a kidney transplant was, but they understood that someone needed help. And instead of complaining about practicing Spanish phrases or being recorded, they had tried to help Dot. When was the last time David had done something like that? When was the last time he had thought about anyone's problems beyond his own immediate circle? He turned to the detectives. Are we done here? Is Rosa being charged with anything? Detective Williams glanced at her partner. That depends on you, Mr. Chan. Technically, she used your children in a video without your consent. But given the circumstances and the fact that no harm was intended, we're inclined to let you handle this as a family matter. Then we're done. Thank you for coming. but I need to talk to Rosa privately. Rodriguez stood up. Mr. Chun, for what it's worth, I think you have good kids. And a good heart, even if you hide it behind cameras and suspicion. David felt his face flush. The detective wasn't wrong. After they left, he asked his children to go to their rooms for a little while. They hesitated, both looking at Rosa with worried faces. Is Miss Rosa in trouble? Lily asked. No, David said. Just go to your rooms. I'll come talk to you in a few minutes. Once the children were gone, David sat down across from Rosa. She looked small in the big armchair, her shoulders hunched like she was trying to disappear. She wouldn't meet his eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. I will pack my things tonight. I understand you want me to leave. I don't want you to leave. Rosa's head jerked up. What? I said I don't want you to leave. Rosa, I need you to understand something. When I saw those videos, I thought the worst. I thought you were trying to hurt my family. I called the police because I was scared and angry, and I jumped to conclusions. He paused. I was wrong. But I used your children without permission. I deceived you. You did. And we're going to talk about that. But first, I need to know more about Maria. How old is she? Rosa seemed confused by the change in topic, but she answered. 28. She has 2 children of her own. A boy who is 5 and a girl who is 3. She's a teacher at an elementary school in Mexico City. Or she was, before she got too sick to work. And her husband? He left when she got sick. Some men are like that. Rosa's voice was bitter. He didn't want the burden of a sick wife and medical bills. So now Maria lives with her sister, and I send money when I can. And we all pray for a miracle that seems like it will never come. David pulled out his phone and opened his banking app. Rosa watched him, still confused. He typed for a moment, then showed her the screen. Is this the GoFundMe account you were going to post? Rosa nodded slowly. David typed some more. Then he turned the phone so Rosa could see. Her eyes went wide. That says $150,000. That's right. I don't understand. I just donated $150,000 to Maria's transplant fund. Actually, a bit more to cover the GoFundMe fees. The money should be available tomorrow. The color drained from Rosa's face. For a moment, David thought she might faint. She gripped the arms of the chair, her knuckles white. You can't. That's too much. I can't accept that. You're not accepting it. I'm giving it to Maria for her surgery and treatment. But why? Why would you do this for us? David leaned back in his chair. It was a good question. Why was he doing this? An hour ago, he had been ready to have Rosa arrested. Now he was giving her more money than she would make in 5 years. Because I can, he said finally. Because my children, who were 8 years old, understood that someone needed help, and they tried to do something about it. They didn't ask what was in it for them. They didn't worry about whether it was their responsibility. They just saw someone suffering and wanted to help. If my 8-year-olds understand that, then I should too. Rosa was crying again, but these were different tears. Mr. Chun, I don't know what to say. This is everything. This is Maria's life. There's more. I'm going to make some calls tomorrow. I know people at Houston Methodist Hospital. They have one of the best transplant programs in the country. If Maria can travel, we'll bring her here for the surgery. Better doctors, better facilities, better chance of success. But that will cost even more money. Let me worry about the money. Rosa, you worry about getting your daughter here safely. Rosa stood up suddenly, and David thought she was going to hug him. But instead, she dropped to her knees, her hands clasped together like she was praying. Thank you. Thank you. I will work for you for free for the rest of my life. I will never be able to repay this. Get up, Rosa, please. David felt uncomfortable. You don't owe me anything. Just keep taking care of my children the way you have been. That's payment enough. Rosa stood, wiping her eyes. I need to call Maria. I need to tell her. She's been so scared. She thinks she's going to die and leave her babies without a mother. Go ahead. Use the guest room so you have privacy. Take all the time you need. Rosa hurried away, already pulling out her phone. David sat alone in the living room, feeling strange. He had spent years building his wealth, making smart investments, closing deals. But he couldn't remember the last time money had felt this important. This real. A soft sound made him turn. Nathan and Lily were peeking around the corner from the hallway, clearly having ignored his instruction to stay in their rooms. Did you hear all that? David asked. They nodded and came fully into the room. Lily climbed onto his lap, something she hadn't done in months. Nathan sat on the arm of the chair. You're going to save Miss Rosa's daughter? Nathan asked. I'm going to help, yes. That's a lot of money, Lily said quietly. More than our allowance for like 1,000,000 years. David smiled despite himself. Yes, it's a lot of money. But we have a lot of money, Nathan said, in the matter-of-fact way only children can. So we should help people who don't, right? Right. Then why don't we do it more? Lily asked. She wasn't being accusatory, just genuinely curious. There are lots of people who need help. I see them when we drive through the city. People sleeping on the sidewalk. People asking for food. David didn't have a good answer for that. Because he was busy? Because he didn't notice? Because it was easier to write a check to a charity once a year and feel like he had done his part? I don't know, he said honestly. Maybe because I forgot that helping people doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes you just see someone who needs something, and you give it to them if you can. Like Miss Rosa's daughter, Nathan said. Like Miss Rosa's daughter. They sat together quietly. From the guest room, David could hear Rosa's voice, rapid Spanish mixed with crying and what sounded like prayers. He wondered what Maria was thinking right now. Getting a phone call from her mother with news that must seem impossible. Dad? Lily's voice was small against his chest. Yeah, sweetheart. Are you still mad at Miss Rosa? No, I was never really mad at her. I was scared. I thought she was doing something bad, but I was wrong. I should have asked her about it instead of assuming the worst. Because of the cameras? David thought about the cameras installed throughout his home. The ones he had been so sure would protect his family. Instead, they had shown him something happening, and he had interpreted it in the worst possible way. The cameras showed me what was happening, he said slowly. But they didn't show me why. They didn't show me what was in Miss Rosa's heart. I had to learn that by actually talking to her. I had to learn. So, are you going to take the cameras down? Nathan asked. I don't know. Maybe. What do you think? The twins looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations that twins have. I think, Lily said carefully, that you should trust people more. Miss Rosa is nice. We could have told you that if you asked us. You're right. I should have asked you. Rosa emerged from the guest room, her face glowing despite the tears still on her cheeks. Maria wants to talk to you, she said, holding out her phone. She wants to say thank you. David took the phone hesitantly. A woman's voice came through, speaking English with the same accent as Rosa. Mr. Chun? This is Maria. I don't have words to thank you. You have saved my life. You have saved my children from losing their mother. I will pray for you and your family every day. You don't need to thank me, David said. Just focus on getting better. Rosa will give you the details about coming to Houston. We'll arrange everything. God bless you, Mr. Chun. God bless your children. The call ended. David handed the phone back to Rosa. His own children were watching him with expressions he couldn't quite read. Pride, maybe? Or just seeing their father in a new way. I think, David said, We should all go out for ice cream. It's late, but I think we can make an exception tonight. Really? Nathan's face lit up. Really? And tomorrow, we're going to sit down and talk about other ways we can help people. All of us together. Because you two just taught me something important tonight. What's that? Lily asked. David looked at Rosa, then back at his children. That being rich doesn't mean anything if you don't use it to make things better. And that sometimes the people you assume you know nothing about are the ones who can teach you the most. Rosa smiled through her tears. Nathan and Lily cheered about ice cream. And David thought about the cameras in his home and wondered if maybe it was time to start seeing people more clearly without them.